Now we learn about the other predominant chord, which is chord 2. So we're going to practice a pattern of going from 1 to 2 to 5 to 1. In the major key, chord 2 is a minor chord. Now, as you will remember, when we went from F to G, so chord 4 to 5, in order to avoid parallels when they're in root position, the hands had to move in opposite directions. The same is true when we go from 1 to 2. There's a risk of doing this, which would make parallels. So the secret is to move the hands in opposite directions. So now we're going to practice this pattern in the 3 starting positions. So chord 1, 2, we're then going to go to chord 5, which has a common note with chord 2. So that's going to stay there, and the other notes are going to move to the nearest place. From this starting position, we're going to chord 2, and to avoid parallels, we're going inwards. Common note holds, and the last position. In the minor, chord 2 is a diminished chord, and we can use it in root position. It does work, but it's not probably not used that frequently in all of the positions. For example, probably a little bit less common. So because there are so many possibilities to explore with the predominant, we're not going to look at that in this session, but you're of course highly encouraged to explore it. So I'm going to go on to first inversions of chord 2, and we're going to start in the major. Now I'm going to show you a little pattern. This isn't the only way you can get to chord 2, it's just in the interest of time we're going to just look at this particular one. So suppose I start here. Now I'm going to go to the F in the bass because that's what the third of chord 2 is. And to get first inversion, we put that in the bass. Now, to avoid any risk of parallels, I'm going to move the hands in opposite direction. Now, a first inversion chord of chord 2 is very similar to a root position of chord 4. And we are going to chord 5. So again, just to make sure that I don't do parallels, I'm going to keep the hands moving in opposite directions. So for these 3 chords, the hands move in opposite directions. And just to look at some other positions, say I start here, I'm going to go to a first inversion of chord 2, the third is in both hands, and then because this is very similar to chord 4, I'm going to keep going in when I go to chord 5, just to avoid parallels. And then the last position, so for this memorization assignment we're practicing chord 2 first inversion. Just a quick note, because the hands are moving into each other, we can get to this situation where the bass and the tenor land on the same note. That's totally fine. In the minor, it's all exactly the same principles. The only difference is that the chord 2 is a diminished chord. But we still, when we go to the first inversion of chord 2, we still move in an opposite direction from the bass. And then when we move into chord 5, again we move in an opposite direction to the bass. In this memorization assignment, we practice going from chord 1 to chord 2 in first inversion, to chord 5, back to chord 1 in the minor. In this improvisation assignment, we incorporate chord 2 in both its inversions. So we're going to do one in the major, and we're going to go through all 12 keys. I'll just give one in C major as a demonstration. And in this improvisation assignment, we cover what we've been doing with chord 2, but we do it in the minor. I will just give one short demonstration in C minor, and I'd like you to do one in all 12 keys.